The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. Grabbing a universally praised RPG masterpiece for $4 feels like robbing the store. The sheer density of storytelling packed into this continent is staggering. Secondary side quests that most studios would use as main campaigns are casually tossed into random villages. The combat can feel a little floaty until you get the hang of the dodging mechanics, but the writing carries the entire experience. You'll agonizingly debate over minor dialogue choices, only to watch entire towns suffer from your mistakes hours later. Getting anywhere from 80 to over 100 hours of premium storytelling for less than the cost of a terrible fast food burger is the easiest buying decision you can make. Wreckfest. Traditional racing sims demand precision. This actively encourages you to put a school bus through the side of a rival's lawnmower. The soft body physics engine accurately crunches metal in real time, meaning that early scrape against the wall permanently alters your steering axle for the rest of the race. Trying to nurse a flaming three-wheeled hunk of scrap metal across the finish line creates pure, unadulterated tension. It runs surprisingly well, even on older rigs, despite the massive amount of debris flying around. Seeing it drop down to $3 makes grabbing it an absolute no-brainer for those nights when you just want to cause digital property damage. Need for Speed Heat. Pushing your luck against heavily aggressive AI cops is the entire foundation here. Daytime events earn cash, but nighttime illegal street races build reputation. The catch is that getting busted strips you of your hard-earned multiplier, forcing a constant internal panic over whether to bank your score or risk one more run. The vehicle customization is absurdly detailed, letting you spend hours just tweaking exhaust sounds and vinyl wraps. Yes, the storyline is about as cheesy as a late-night cable movie, but the sense of speed easily makes up for it. $7 for one of the better modern arcade racers provides ridiculous value. Cyberpunk 2077. Forget everything you heard about the rocky launch period. The massive overhauls have turned Night City into an incredibly dense, reactive sandbox that actually delivers on its original promises. The revamped perk system completely changes how you approach combat, heavily rewarding entirely specialized builds. Throwing knives from the shadows feels just as viable as turning your arms into mantis blades and rushing the front door. Driving around the chaotic streets can occasionally still spawn a weird visual bug, but the sheer scale of the architecture is jaw-dropping. Scoring this for $18 gets you a wildly polished, deeply immersive RPG that easily eats up weeks of your time. Dead Space. Tension is surgically injected into every single shadow aboard the USG Ishimura. The lighting engine creates an atmosphere so oppressive you'll find yourself holding your breath before opening standard doors. Instead of rewarding headshots, the combat forces you to calmly sever limbs off sprinting nightmares while your ammo counter rapidly flashes red. The total lack of a traditional UHD keeps your eyes locked on the terrifying environment rather than staring at health bars. Dropping down to $6 for a ground-up remake of a legendary horror classic is aggressively underpriced for the amount of premium dread provided. Rust. Trusting anyone on the beach is usually your first fatal mistake. The social dynamics are notoriously ruthless, forcing constant paranoia every time you chop a tree or light a campfire. Waking up to the sound of explosives blowing through your hard-earned sheet metal doors triggers genuine panic. It demands a significant time commitment to maintain a base, making it incredibly punishing for solo players against coordinated groups. Yet pulling off a successful raid with a few cheap pipe shotguns delivers an unmatched adrenaline rush. Paying $20 for a ruthless survival sandbox that prints chaotic stories daily is surprisingly fair. EA Sports FC 26. Nailing a perfectly timed through ball past a defensive line brings an undeniable rush. The animation systems provide an uncanny level of realism, replicating the precise movements of top-tier athletes. Tinkering with tactical formations and squad chemistry offers plenty of depth for managers wanting to squeeze every ounce of performance from their club. The aggressive microtransactions in the Ultimate Team modes are perpetually annoying, but entirely ignorable if you prefer career mode. Seeing a massive price slash to $14 makes grabbing the latest iteration highly justifiable for the sheer volume of licenses and fluid on-pitch action. The Hunter Call of the Wild. Patience is an absolute requirement when stalking wildlife across these massive reserves. The wind direction, noise discipline, and shot placement dictate whether you secure a prized trophy or spend an hour chasing footprints into a swamp. The audio design is brilliant, forcing you to listen closely for distant calls, while snapping twigs underfoot sound like gunshots. Walking for 20 minutes without seeing a target is not uncommon, which turns away impatient players fast. However, snagging a beautiful, slow-paced simulation for $2 is essentially a free ticket to a gorgeous virtual hiking trip with rifles. NBA 2K26 Slam Edition. Mastering the Pro Stick timing creates an incredibly satisfying rhythm on the hardwood. The presentation perfectly mimics a live television broadcast, capturing the chaotic energy of the arena. Building a custom player and grinding up the ranks carries a heavy sense of progression, even if the city hub occasionally feels cluttered with unnecessary brand deals. The aggressive microtransactions in the Ultimate Team modes are perpetually annoying, but entirely ignorable if you prefer career mode. Seeing a massive price slash to $14 makes grabbing the latest iteration highly justifiable for the sheer volume of licenses and fluid on-pitch action. Sonic Racing CrossWorlds. Cooperative kart racing completely flips the genre on its head. Sharing speed boosts and items with your team means finishing first doesn't matter if your buddies are stuck in the back of the pack. The track design constantly introduces alternate routes and ridiculous gravity-defying loops to keep the momentum incredibly fast. The AI occasionally rubber bands a little too aggressively on higher difficulties, causing some cheap losses at the finish line. Having the price makes this an incredibly smart pickup for filling out your library with a chaotic party game that rewards actual teamwork. Crime Boss Rockay City. Managing a criminal empire in the 90s requires balancing territory wars with aggressive bank jobs. The roguelike campaign structure means a single bad heist can completely wipe out your progress and force a total restart. Organizing your crew and surviving massive police shootouts brings a delightfully chaotic arcade energy. The dialogue from the celebrity cast is incredibly goofy and borders on campy, which might clash with serious expectations. Shelling out $2 measly for a remarkably robust co-op shooter is basically pocket change for hours of explosive vault cracking. Dave the Diver. Harpooning exotic fish by day and managing a chaotic sushi restaurant by night creates a dangerously addictive gameplay loop. The mechanics continually expand right when you think you've seen everything, throwing seahorse racing and underwater farming into the mix without warning. Balancing your oxygen supply against the greed of grabbing one more heavy shark carcass creates constant risk-reward calculations. The restaurant management can occasionally feel a bit overwhelming when multiple VIPs arrive simultaneously. Getting all this infectious charm and endless variety for $10 guarantees your evenings will vanish entirely. Atomfall. Surviving a quarantined nuclear zone requires scrounging every rusty tin can and loose bullet you can find. The atmosphere perfectly captures a bizarre, isolated tension reminiscent of classic British sci-fi. Talking your way out of conflicts with unlynched locals is often much smarter than pulling out a degrading cricket bat. The combat is intentionally clunky, heavily emphasizing desperate survival over stylish action sequences. Paying $20 to explore an incredibly distinct, fiercely weird apocalyptic world feels like an excellent investment for fans of heavy atmospheric exploration. Hunt Showdown 1896. Every single sound you make in the bayou can permanently end your run. Startling a flock of crows or stepping on broken glass instantly alerts rival bounty hunters to your exact location. The vintage weapons require slow, deliberate reloads, turning every gunfight into a high-stakes chess match of positioning and patience. The learning curve is brutal, demanding a massive tolerance for losing expensive hunters to a single well-placed shot. Scoring this intense, stress-inducing masterpiece for $12 grants access to the tightest audio design in the entire industry.
Batman Arkham Knight. Gliding over the rain-soaked skyline of Gotham delivers an unmatched power fantasy. The fluid, rhythmic combat system flawlessly connects bone-crunching strikes with gadgets in a way that remains incredibly satisfying years later. Interrogating informants and tracking down iconic villains scatters thrilling side stories across a visually stunning open world. The forced tank battle sections drag on longer than necessary and break the stealth pacing entirely. Taking home one of the most visually impressive superhero titles ever made for under $4 is an absolute steal that belongs in every library. Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Wielding dual lightsabers and aggressively parrying blaster bolts fulfills the ultimate cinematic fantasy. The expanded combat stances allow for incredibly diverse playstyles, easily swapping between heavy cross-guard strikes and lightning-fast dual-wielding combinations. Exploring the intricate, sprawling planets rewards curious players with meaningful cosmetic upgrades and powerful combat perks. The performance optimization on PC can still be a little finicky in heavily populated hub areas. Seeing a massive AAA adventure packed with intense boss fights drop to $14 provides tremendous entertainment value. Age of Wonders 4. Creating entirely custom factions lets you build an empire of cannibalistic halflings or magically infused frost toads. The blend of deep empire management and tactical turn-based battles forces constant strategic adjustments. Taking out an opposing ruler requires careful spellcasting and clever flanking maneuvers, rather than just throwing a bigger army at the problem. Navigating the complex diplomacy and magic research trees initially feels like reading a textbook. Dropping $25 for a massive strategy sandbox that actively encourages bizarre combinations ensures hundreds of hours of replayability. DayZ Deluxe Edition. Starvation, sickness, and the elements are far more lethal than the shambling infected roaming the map. Every encounter with another player triggers massive anxiety, completely unsure if they want to trade a can of beans or steal your shoes. Securing basic medical supplies and clean water feels like a monumental achievement. The inventory interface remains notoriously clunky, often fighting against you during tense firefights. Handing over $30 for the deluxe package delivers an intensely bleak, entirely unscripted survival sandbox, where paranoia is your absolute best friend. Hearts of Iron 4. Controlling global supply chains and industrial output is entirely your responsibility. This grand strategy behemoth asks you to rewrite global history through terrifyingly complex logistics. Securing a rubber supply line in Asia is just as crucial as positioning armor divisions in Europe. The learning curve resembles a brick wall, requiring serious patience just to understand naval invasions. Once the mechanics finally click, hours vanish as you meticulously plan 2-year-long campaigns to encircle enemy forces. Securing hundreds of hours of agonizing strategic planning for $10 turns this into a massive win for spreadsheet warriors. Final Fantasy VII Remake INTERGRADE. Modernizing a childhood memory could have been a disaster, yet the combat system miraculously blends real-time action with thoughtful tactical pauses. Switching between party members mid-fight to exploit elemental weaknesses creates a beautifully frantic rhythm. Midgar itself is incredibly detailed, expanding minor background characters into fully realized personalities. Some of the required walking sections deliberately slow the pacing down a bit too much, but the boss fights are pure cinematic adrenaline. Snagging the complete package with the extra DLC content for under $14 is an exceptional bargain for heavy RPG fans.